So I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I did sit down and watch all 6 movies in the past week to prepare for Force Awakens. I realize not everyone has that kind of time, so I've decided to summarize all of them for you here. The first movie is called Star Wars. It came out in 1977, and it's actually episode 4 in the series. It was later dubbed A New Hope. In this film, there's a civil war between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance. The Empire has bad dudes like Darth Vader, the Stormtroopers, and these guys that kind of look like Nazis. The good guys are the Rebel Alliance. For example, there's Princess Leia and these pilots who wear orange jumpsuits. We learn they're the remains of the Old Republic, but we don't really know what that means yet. At this point, we don't really know about the Jedi either. They're not really around. So Princess Leia's starship is about to be captured by Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers, so she quickly records a hologram message using her droid R2-D2. She tells R2-D2 and C-3PO to escape using an escape pod. And C-3PO and R2-D2 end up on this desert planet called Tatooine. On Tatooine, they run into these Jawa traders who kidnap them, and then they sell them to Luke, who lives on this planet with his aunt and uncle who have been raising him since he was a baby. When Luke is cleaning up R2-D2, he sees there's a message. R2 doesn't play the whole thing, but the part he does play says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." Luke doesn't know who Princess Leia is, nor does she know who this Obi-Wan guy is, but R2 is really convinced that he needs to talk to him. And none of this you can really understand because R2-D2 is like beep, 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 but C-3PO is a protocol droid who translates for us. So there happens to be this guy on Tatooine called Old Ben Kenobi, and Luke is like, maybe that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And sure enough, it's the same guy. So when they meet with Ben, R2 plays the whole message, and it turns out that he also has the plans to the Death Star, which is the Empire's new weapon. And they need to take these plans to the Rebel Alliance so they can see if there's any weaknesses in the Death Star so they can destroy it. We also learn that Obi-Wan is a Jedi, and he knew Luke's father, who was being trained to be a Jedi as well, but was killed by Darth Vader. They end up going to this crazy bar, and they ask these smugglers, Han Solo and Chewbacca, to transport them to the Rebel Alliance. And they take the spaceship called Millennium Falcon. It's kind of a piece of junk, but it's really fast. So they get on this Empire spaceship, I think it's the Death Star, and they save Leia, and she's really tough, so she helps them escape. And then Obi-Wan gets in a duel with Vader using lightsabers, and at one point he just puts down his lightsaber and lets Vader kill him. But before that, he says, "You cannot win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." We don't really know what that means at this point. But Luke sees him get killed, and then Luke, Han, Leia, and Chewie, and the rest escape. Then Luke uses the Force to destroy the Death Star. He uses it to guide him to this weird self-destruct button that's in the middle of the Death Star. And that's cool, except Darth Vader then escapes on one of the TIE fighters. It's still a really happy ending. The next movie is The Empire Strikes Back. It takes place 3 years later. It starts out on this weird planet called Hoth that is very cold. Not too much happens. We learn that these animals called tauntauns can be sliced open and used as a sleeping bag if you don't have any other options. We also see these all-terrain armored transports that belong to the Empire. They are super cool. Then the ghost of Obi-Wan comes to Luke and says he should go find Yoda, who will train him to be a Jedi. So Luke goes and finds Yoda. Yoda is this weird little green guy that talks funny, but he's also a Jedi master. And Luke becomes his Padawan, and a Padawan is someone who's training to be a Jedi. Meanwhile, Han and Leia are falling in love, and since the Empire is trying to get them, he takes her and everybody else to the Cloud City to hide, because his buddy Lando is running the place. But when they get there, they find out it's a trap. Darth Vader is there, and so is this bounty hunter named Boba Fett, and they want to capture Han and Leia and use them to bait Luke Skywalker. It's not really clear if we can trust Lando or not, because they totally set them up, but at the same time, maybe he didn't really have any options. I mean, it was Darth Vader after all. So Boba Fett freezes Han in this weird box thing and then takes him to Jabba the Hutt, who has a bounty on his head. Meanwhile, Lando and Leia and Chewie and the others escape on the Millennium Falcon, and then Luke gets in a lightsaber fight with Darth Vader. During this fight, Darth Vader cuts off Luke's hand, and then he says, "I am your father." And he's like, "Come and join me, and we'll be bad guys together, and we'll be like the biggest bad guys ever." And Luke Skywalker's like, "No!" And he just jumps. And it looks like he's gonna die, but he like hangs on to something and sends like good thoughts to Leia, and she picks up on it, and she and Lando save him in the Millennium Falcon. So at the end of this movie, Luke gets a robot hand, Han is still frozen in this weird box thing, Lando and Chewbacca go to Jabba the Hutt to try to save Han, and the others are just like hanging out. It's not a really happy ending. So that brings us to the final movie in the first trilogy, Return of the Jedi. This one starts out at Jabba the Hutt's place. So Leia and C-3PO and Chewie and all these folks try to save Han, but they get captured by Jabba the Hutt. And Han is still frozen. So then Luke Skywalker shows up to try to rescue them, but then he gets captured, and it looks like they're all about to die, but suddenly you realize this was all Luke's plan all along, and he's totally gonna save the day, and Boba Fett dies, and Leia kills Jabba the Hutt, and they all escape. And then Luke is like, "I should go find Yoda and finish my Jedi training," because he left it to go find the others. When he gets there, Yoda is dying. But before he dies, Yoda's like, "Darth Vader is your father, and there's another Skywalker." And then the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi comes back and tells Luke, "Yep, Vader is totally your dad. Earlier, when I said Vader killed your dad, what I really meant was when your dad went bad, he stopped being your dad, and, he became Darth Vader, this really bad guy." He also said that he must face his father in order to defeat the Empire, and Luke should keep his emotions in check, and that Leia is his sister. She's the other Skywalker. Meanwhile, there's a new Death Star being built, and there's this shield on the planet Endor that protects the Death Star. There's also a bunch of Ewoks on the planet. So at first the Ewoks are really mean to Luke and Han and the rest, but then they meet C-3PO and they're convinced he's a god, so then they're really chill with everyone. And there's this big battle of Endor where Lando's in the Millennium Falcon and he's trying to destroy the Death Star, but before he can do that, Leia and Han have to disable the shield back on Endor. And at the same time, Darth Vader and Luke in another lightsaber fight. In this fight, Luke really hurts Darth Vader. He cuts off Vader's hand, which is kind of sweet revenge because Vader had already cut off Luke's hand. But he decides not to kill Vader because Jedi just don't do that. They don't kill people unless it's for self-defense. This comes in later, and it's pretty important. So then the Emperor, who is Vader's boss and is like super, super bad, uses this weird force lightning stuff to hurt Luke. And Vader gets really mad. He does not want the Emperor to kill his son. So he actually ends up killing the Emperor. And in the process, he gets really hurt. He's about to die. So then he asks Luke to take off his mask. And then they have this nice moment where they kind of make amends right before his father dies. So Darth Vader is dead. But Lando does destroy the Death Star, and it looks like the Rebel Alliance is doing pretty well. So it's a pretty happy ending. So this is the original 3 Star Wars, and I've got another post that will describe the first 3 films that are the remakes.